Special thanks to 110 Industries for providing me with a review copy. "110 Industries' Wanted Dead has a lot of personality. The voice acting and character interactions are cheesy but endearing. I'm not great at the minigames, but they're fun and addicting. There are animated cutscenes that are used to signify flashbacks, which are tied to the trauma of the main character. It's an interesting device and is used expertly at the beginning of the nightclub level. The main protagonist, Hannah Stone, is going to confront her past, and the cutscene begins as a typical in-game cutscene. Once she enters the nightclub, the art style changes to the anime-inspired cutscenes that signify a flashback. She's having a hard time handling the situation until her teammate checks up on her. Then the cutscene changes back to the in-game art style once she snaps back into reality. Moments like these show that the developer, Soleil, wanted to make something special. There's always a but here, and it's the gameplay as well as the presentation. I played the game on the PS5 and I experienced frame rate issues, aggressive texture pop-ins when respawning, sound balancing issues, and 2 accounts of the game crashing on me. The game wants you to parry attacks in the blink of an eye with frame rate issues, and it can lead to deaths that aren't your fault. Upgrades once bought are not saved, which means that when you die, you have to constantly rebuy those upgrades. Sure, this means you can experiment with different upgrades, but to constantly have to rebuy the same upgrades over and over again can be taxing. Furthermore, you can upgrade your weapons at designated checkpoints. When you change your stock or barrel, those upgrades get saved. So if you can save those upgrades, why can't your regular ability upgrades save after purchase? At one point I thought, what if I buy upgrades and then customize my weapon so it can save? And that shockingly worked. This can seem tangential, but the act of playing the game and doing ancillary things like upgrades was exhausting, which was something I never expected. Those designated checkpoints where you can get free health items, ammo, and health disappear after you go to the next room and start the next round of enemies. This means if you change your mind later or are in need of a fix up after running low on items, you have to wait to the next checkpoint, which can seem like 20 years because of the enemies themselves. You're probably wondering, well, can you find health items during actual combat? And that's a fat maybe, because the stem packs are a rare drop in my experience, and they don't heal you completely, so by the time you find one, it might not really change anything. These checkpoints and their nebulous positions are your only way of respawning, which means after going through waves of enemies, which includes boss-like enemies, one mistake can send you tens of minutes back. So if you keep dying, you'll be slamming the button after each game over in rhythm, and that'll make you mistakenly click yes to change the difficulty to easy. If you do this, you can't change it back. Not on the main menu, and not even in the in-game menu. So if you're a content creator, be careful of what you press. I decided to do a non-recorded run. I got to the second to last level before getting stuck for days. I then decided to just start up a new file and start recording. I got an hour into the game, mistakenly pressed change to easy, and my entire file was unusable. This is why the footage is 2 levels of the game and varies in quality between streaming the game to capture some things and using my capture card. So that's why things aren't consistent. Also, creators beware of the Content ID system. The game's soundtrack contains a cover of 99 Luftballons, and some of the tracks can get flagged by Content ID. I tried DMing 110's Twitter account, and they didn't follow me up on it, so just be careful. Let's talk about the gameplay. Wanted Dead is an ode to old hack and slashes and offers decapitations and body parts flying action we expect from hack and slashes. That's why whenever you see people talking about it on Twitter, you see heads and arms being destroyed. They look cool, but the actual enemy-to-enemy combat is not fun and it can often feel overwhelming. The game combines third-person cover shooting with sword play while throwing both types of enemies at the same time. This means you're expected to shoot from behind something while a sword-carrying enemy charges at you. The gunplay itself is not intuitive. It feels like 2 types of gameplay clashing instead of complementing each other. The only time the game wants you to feel that way is when it comes to parrying. There's the normal guard parry, but when the enemy emits a red energy, you have to press triangle to stagger your enemy with the pistol. That allows for an instant takedown. The pistol itself could be used in combos to stagger enemies, but it's not that reliable, even if you mash the triangle button over and over again without hitting them with your sword. Combos are just you combining your normal attacks with your pistol attacks. It's not that deep, and while you combine a charge attack, it more than often leaves you open to attacks. If you defeat a certain amount of enemies, you can use bullet time, which allows you to perform an attack that staggers a room of enemies. This allows you to perform multiple instant takedowns. It looks cool, but they aren't useful for boss type enemies, which is what you save them for. The game offers you grenades, and with an upgrade, incendiary grenades. You can arch them in a myriad ways, but in the heat of combat, they can either be depleted immediately or not be that useful. Enemies are constantly on the move, so regular grenades at times just feel like you're throwing them in hopes of advantage. Incendiary grenades act as impact grenades, and while they're good for sword enemies, you can get damaged by your own grenades, which can get chaotic. A couple of the levels have you with your squad mates, and with upgrades, they can attack enemies with their own special abilities, even allowing you to do instant takedowns. But the AI rarely does anything that causes you the special ability, and when they finally do something, you won't notice because you're in the middle of it. The only useful squad mate is Doc, and that's because he'll revive you after death. but that's only once per checkpoint, and considering how many enemies you encounter per checkpoint, you'll be scurrying not to die or take much damage. Worst of all, he's barely there, so you spend a majority of the other levels without a means to revive instantly, which makes the game significantly harder for no other reason than the pattern of the game. The parrying system is also unrefined, which makes the overwhelming gameplay much more so. I can press the block button immediately, but it won't register, and now it can be destroyed. There's an upgrade that lets you parry unblockable attacks, and if you press the parry button as you normally do, it wouldn't do anything. So what's the point of this upgrade? The gameplay as a whole is frustrating and exhausting. There's no fluidity in the parry system, and neither in the gunplay. Also, there's no lock-on button, which means getting gamed up by a group of enemies is a constant instead of a possibility. There's no ground attack to give you space, and the charge attack is not useful for obvious reasons. You can roll, but you just slam into enemies. All these things combined have you going through waves of enemies, including boss-like enemies, without the ability to get extra healing items and the ability to properly defend yourself. Enemies can drop guns, but you're not allowed to experiment with different kinds of guns because by the time you move somewhere else, everything despawns. I don't understand why you're asking the player to experiment without giving them the space to, especially with certain guns not having ammo pickup from enemies until you reach a checkpoint, which is a ways away. And by the time you find something, you'll die and then go a while back to do the same thing again. I'm not asking for checkpoints every 2 seconds, but when you throw multiple small armies at you, while ramping up the difficulty significantly, more checkpoints would be nice. The actual bosses are middle of the road. The robot tank took me a while, but it wasn't too bad. The August boss fight took me 2 days. That's because you're expected to defeat a huge wave of enemies and then immediately fight a boss without a way to heal or get more items. The only boss I enjoyed was Kolchak, which is this camo ninja. Not only she looked cool, but the fight was also pretty fun. I wasn't able to complete the game because the police station raid was where I drew the line. Despite the horrendousness prior, I was able to get through each level, but the police raid stage cranked every issue I had to attend. You had to fight a mini boss, and then waves of enemies that include a lesser version of that mini boss, and then another wave of enemies, and then another type of mini boss. You have to move to another room to fight that same mini boss, and then if you die, you have to go all the way back, and you're expected to do it all over again. I gave that level a full week and then some of attempts before calling it quits, which is why I'm not giving the game my usual rating out of 5. When it comes to single reviews like this, I want to complete everything and be as informative as I can, but because I didn't finish the game despite giving it a full month of tries, I didn't feel comfortable giving it a full rating. To 110's credit, on the 24th of February, they made a tweet that they heard all the feedback and are going to fix the game. These changes range from technical issues to full-blown reworkings and certain things with a roadmap. This means that the game at some point will be a better version of itself, and I commend them for not outright abandoning the game, especially with the love from the fanbase. But this raises a major question. Why charge $60 for a single player game with so many issues that you need a roadmap to fix the game? Patches are one thing, but a full-blown roadmap with plans of reworking in the game sounds like huge changes that go beyond fixing glitches. When these patches get placed, I want to try the game again, and if you're interested in Wanted Dead, I suggest waiting until they implement these changes. Wanted Dead has a lot of personality, the characters are fun, the acting is cheesy, and the mini-games are addictive. The main story, while confusing, has a lot of interesting ideas, such as changing mediums to tackle flashbacks and the nightclub scene. The game wants to tackle humanity in the age of robots, but they don't go far enough to keep us invested. We get the setup, but none of the repercussions. Also, we meet this character named August, his boss name is August, but Hannah doesn't find out his name is August until after the boss fight. I thought that was funny. Also, is that Britt and Yuri? 110 Industries and Soleil have shown that there's a lot of love and passion placed on this game. I'm just hoping that the game itself gets that same amount of love and that this game becomes a fun and insane hack and slash that beckons you to come back every other day. I mean, there's a chainsaw power-up that has a huge sensor bar whenever you use it. What's not to love about that? Thanks for watching. If you like this video and you want to see more, consider subscribing to the channel. A like and a comment goes a long way to feeding the almighty algorithm. I'd like to once again thank 110 Industries for providing me with a review copy, and I can't wait to see where Wanted Dead goes from here. I wasn't a fan of the game, but I'm still on the edge of my seat to see what's next. I would like to thank my patrons, Leocrit and Retroway, for supporting the channel, and for $1 a month, your name can show up right here. Love you guys, and shamalamamoomoo.